now you're in your mogul phase. It's like, it's a constant evolution.
When you're coming up with an idea, it's like, be authentic to what it is. And if you stop trying to chase it and really work on what your passion is, or work on what you know your purpose is, then everything else is gonna fall in alignment.
Nick Cannon is an absolute mogul. He started in the entertainment industry as a teen and has since become a multimedia entertainer, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. Today, he's talking to us about his path to creating billion-dollar businesses and much more.
This is Assets Over Liabilities on Revolt.
I'm looking forward to having this conversation.
Wide open, man.
The business side of stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone talk all the time, but not the business side stuff.
It's funny, man, because I just assets and liabilities. That's how I build my whole company. That's all I talk about. It's like,
Looking at the
life.
list, like, what doesn't he have?
Yeah, nah, but it's just real too. It's like where you put your energies.
Showtime. UIL, Assets Over Liabilities, Season 2. Financial journalist at his best.
Like y'all like the way I was doing the math. I seen it. I was like, yeah, keep asking them questions.
Oh man, my brother Nick Cannon, man, it's something that we really excited about.
Man.
I was excited, really excited when I heard that, we was gonna be talking to you. Cause I feel like a lot of people have heard you talk. You grew up on the camera, but I don't think a lot of people have a full appreciation or have heard you talk about the ups and downs, trials and tribulations as far as growing an empire in business. So I feel like this is gonna be one of those like master classes of education.
Yeah.
From somebody that, like I said, has become a cultural icon as far as actually like a childhood star, childhood prodigy.
Yeah, it's like, this is one of those rare moments where we actually grew with the person. We watched you from Nickelodeon to now.
Yeah.
And it's like, this dude's a mogul.
Man,
I told you outside, there's nothing that would surprise me that you do. The greatest showman.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And that's why we were just talking like, man, I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, I appreciate the accolades and the conversation, but I'm learning from y'all. I'm watching y'all. I'm studying how the moves go in. I never want to come from a place of like expertise or masterclass, because it's still a process for me and I'm still figuring it out, because we are the first generation of really being able to operate the way that we operate. And like we learn from the Steve Harveys and even me, the Eddie Murphys and the Russell Simmons and the Quincy Jones of the world, but even them, it's a different playbook now. When you think about the amount of billions that are generated from what we started and what we generated from our own creativity, not just in the hip hop culture, but even the post hip hop culture of this new age, this, Gen Z, the millennial concepts of how we're gonna, it's about ownership, it's about IP. Like none of these conversations ever happened before this.
Let's get into it, but I want to start at the beginning. I just found something out. At 17, you was the youngest writer in Nickelodeon history.
Youngest writer in television history.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Obviously, I came up in the time of where you had to do it all. I was a young stand-up comedian / rapper / producer, all of this stuff. I was, a kid coming from the church. I just wanted to put on for my friends. So I would DJ, throw parties, make beats, like selling CDs out the trunk of my mom's car. Like that was the vibe. And then I was always like, charismatic type of kid, and I was my pops was a minister, so I would always like get to tell jokes at church and open up for the preacher man, and he was the one that kind of drove me like, yo, everybody wants to be a rapper, but you're funny, you know what I mean? Like, do something different, think outside the box. So in the space, he had a televangelist ministry. So he was like public access, like come on, like, or like early Sunday morning, like all of that stuff. So I had to learn how to take workshops in like Cablevision and stuff like that. You had to have a show, you had to take all of the workshops. So I had to work the cameras, the audio, set up the lighting, the sets at like 11, 12 years old. And in reward, I got studio time. So I would do rap shows and comedy shows and all of that. And from that, I developed a set at like 11, 12 years old, and I would go on the road doing stand-up. And
at 12?
At like 12,
wow.
Yeah, I was like the kid comedian. It's funny, like I would audition for like They wouldn't let me on Def Jam because I was, you know,
Right.
but I was around all of those guys. I would do shows with all of those dudes, but I couldn't get on because of HBO policies. I tried to do Comic View, but they had liquor sponsors and like.
It's true. Yeah, damn.
Yeah, so
That
it was
would've been
things that they
crazy.
wouldn't like, but I was still like, you know, Fat Tuesdays, the comedy. Like I was a kid, like comedy act theater. I was a kid, but I was a gimmick. You know what I mean? I was a little kid doing jokes in adult settings. So from that, developing an act from about 12 to 15, and I became a regular at the Comedy Store and the Improv in Hollywood. I would literally drive 2 hours from San Diego after school, or catch a ride. I couldn't even drive. Somebody drove me a train, something like that, and then stand outside and wait to get on stage for 2 minutes and then have to be back at school. And that would be what my whole set was about. I put like my hat at the end of the stage and be like, nigga need some gas money. Like that was like the whole joke. But from there, some of the producers from Nickelodeon saw me and was like, yo, there's this 15-year-old kid on stage and clearly we make shows for 15-year-olds and, you know, this is the time of All That and Kenan and Kel, and I was in awe of them because I was like, yo, I'm out here hustling, y'all out there
TV.
getting it.
Yeah.
So I would like see Kenan and his manager, and they really put me on, but they put me on in a way where I became the audience warm-up. The person, like when you go to a taping of a show taping take about 4 to 6 hours. There has to be somebody that entertains the audience during those down times and breaks. So I was the youngest audience warm-up at like 15, 16 years old. They allowed me to start writing and be in the writer's room and kind of was showing me the ropes. And, you know, by the time I was 17, you know, like I said, I started doing warm-up at 16. By the time I was 17, I had, you know, all thankful to, you know, my big bro Kenan and Kel and all of them, they allowed me to write episodes, and then I started working on other shows. I started developing my own stuff and was in the Writers Guild at like 17 years old. So it was, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I was the youngest. I don't know if there's anybody been younger since then, but at 17 years old, I was a staff writer.
So at that point, you're, I mean, not an adult yet. So like, who's negotiating the contracts for you? Like now you're a full-fledged employee.
It's interesting because I was a transitional period because when I'm hustling, I'm my manager. I'm my producer, my writer, the director. On stage, I could do it all myself, and I would get people from the neighborhood to help fund things, buy me a drum machine, drive me to the comedies, all of that stuff. But then once I got into the space on All That and Nickelodeon, I still have the same manager from when I was 16 to this day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's a brother by the name of Michael Goldman who saw me then, and still I rock with him now. And so luckily I never had really any of the tragic stories. I mean, before it was some grimy stuff, you know, as a kid, you know, but I've had, you know, same lawyer, same manager, pretty much same, you know, accountant and business manager since I was 16 years old.
Since the beginning.
Yeah.
That's rare.
Very rare.
Yeah, very rare. And I mean, and a lot of people say that's a testament because I do believe in loyalty. I do believe, you know, in celebrating and dancing with who you came to the party with. You know what I mean? There's value to that. Just when you just think about character, you often see a lot of people jumping from relationship to relationship, but then they get mad when those different relationships aren't loyal to them. If you rock with who you came to the party with, that's a real sense. Ain't nobody ever gonna get it right all the way. And there probably are some things that are like, man, if I would've went and got with this person and figured out how to do this, I might've been able to do this a lot quicker. But luckily, I feel like I was really blessed to get, you know, a A1, you know, strong team from the beginning that kind of knew the direction, and we grew together, you know what I mean? And you know, you have growing pains. There's probably certain things that we'll probably talk about it today. There's several things where my team didn't understand what I was doing or why I was even spending money here or wasting money here that obviously turned out to be quite lucrative. But they gave me the respect, even as a young man, to say, okay, he has a vision and we're gonna support and follow that vision.
So you didn't have the horror, because you always hear a lot of horror stories in sports entertainment of people getting taken advantage of from their business managers, from their accountants. Yeah. You know, we interviewed Fat Joe. He went to jail for tax evasion because of an issue with an accountant. Steve Harvey's well documented.
We were just talking about that. Yeah.
You know, it's $22 million. He said got stolen from that situation, or he had to pay taxes, $22 million. So, did you see that happening with some of your peers? And Like,
Interestingly enough, and I think we were talking about this off camera, I don't have the horror stories of anybody stealing from me, but I do have the horror stories of being irresponsible and losing it more than once, going broke, not having the bread, being a kid, people warning me from accountants, and I think early on, as a teenager, getting my first check, I was signed to Will Smith after all of that. Everything.
For the music or for the acting?
Everything. Like, so once I was creating a little buzz at like I said, 16 years old. In Atlanta, they had this comedy festival that Jamie Foxx used to put on called Laugh-A-Palooza in the 90s. And that's kind of one of those spots where you can get on and get a deal. Yeah. And, I rocked that joint, and Will Smith's company was there, and they got the tape and showed it to Will, and Will was like, yo, I want to meet that kid. And then as soon as I got back to LA, took a meeting up at NBC where they did the Fresh Prince, but by this time he was already like, it was like late 90s. He was Big Willie style. He was the biggest movie star in the world. So he walked in the room, and like within 5 minutes I had pitched him a TV show, my album, all of that stuff, and he was like, yo, you remind me so much of me. He was like, I'm gonna sign you up for everything, and gave me like my first deal, and I feel like it was like $200,000, something like that, but I'm 16, 17, like I'm like, this is I'm rich, you know what I mean? So from that, I'm like, we got a 6-episode commitment on the WB. It was supposed to come on right after the Jamie Foxx show. Same showrunner as the Jamie Foxx show. Will Smith producing it. Quincy Jones was on the set.
Well, everybody's involved.
I was lit, you know what I mean? So first I got that check, I went and bought me a brand new Range Rover. Will had one too. I was like, I'm getting the same thing you got. He was like, don't do that. And I was like, what you mean don't do that? Like, I got 6-episode commitment. I'm making crazy money every episode if it goes through. Yeah. You gave me the advance. I got a record deal coming out. We flying private. I'm rocking with you. Like, I thought I was on. And then he would tell me the horror stories of when, he won a Grammy and lost all his money and went broke. And I'm like, that ain't gonna happen to me because I got you. You know what I mean?
That's the biggest difference.
Right. But he's like, no, I'm trying to tell you, don't do it. And like so many people, even the business manager I had at the time, like, he was like, yo, you really want to spend, at the time, like I'm 200, I'm not knowing about taxes, all that stuff. He was like, yo, if you buy this Range Rover, like that's kind of all your money.
You're done.
Like,
you'll be living in it.
Right. And as a teenager, and it's funny, man, like obviously the show didn't get picked up. You know what I mean? That was heartbreaking. I'm a teenager. I done already told everybody at school I'm about to be on after Jamie Foxx, Will Smith, and we shot the pilot, but for whatever reason, they didn't pick up the show. And I would say by the time, by the time I had it, I was fly 18. At this time, before my 19th birthday, I totaled that car and couldn't get another one, and like literally was back living at my mom's house, back driving my mom's car, and it was just like, man, luckily I learned that lesson, or one lesson. There's many lessons to learn, but I learned that lesson at early on, and I was obviously able to get some more opportunities and things like that, but spent the whole check, you know what I mean? Everything on an item that I really didn't own, that depreciated, and by the time I crashed it, couldn't even, I was joyriding good for a couple of months, but then, I'm back in my mom's little Cougar or Pontiac, you know what I mean? Like, and it was something that it broke my ego. It kind of even early on taught me lessons of like having the perseverance and the resilience, but it was a hard lesson to understand, especially when you got the biggest movie star in the world telling you,
don't do
pay
this.
attention, don't do this. And clearly I don't know more than him at that time, you know what I mean? Still to this day don't know more than him, but it's like in that process of just wanting to show what we got, or wanting to show the success. And I'm a teenager. So it's things like that I have a lot of those horror stories. I don't really have horror stories of people stealing from me, but I have horror stories of making, immature decisions.
Late 90s?
Yeah, this was like it was a process probably from like 97 to 99. like I said, I was from 17 to 19 years old is probably when I learned my first big lesson of how to structure yourself.
I think the difference in what your stories are is the accountability piece.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like, no, they didn't do it. It was me.
Yeah.
It's self-destruction.
Yeah.
But the other part is the perseverance part. So like, obviously you started out in the television with Nickelodeon and Nick at Night, but you transitioned to film. And so I'm wondering, is Will the impact story that said, all right, we got to transition for that? Or, because I mean, even at the young age of thinking of a show and naming it Loose Cannon with your name, I hear ownership already, you're thinking that.
Yeah.
And so how did you transition to film as opposed to being TV?
It's interesting because I didn't even differentiate between the two. I just always was writing. I was like, I have to create. I understood IP and intellectual property from the gate. And I think that's a little bit of the hustler in me, but that's also a little bit of the artist and probably the stand-up comedian in me, knowing that I gotta write my own material, I gotta produce like I was never really a dude that I didn't get stuff off of auditions. Like I tried to go through the process and, I'm a decent actor and I can get it, but I felt like I always had more to offer and I would get in those rooms and it just wouldn't, but I'd be like, you know what, that's not for me. Like that's, to me, a lot of the audition process, and love to everybody who is successful in that space, but I always saw that as like, that's like the worker ant mentality. You know what I mean? You get a call, you got to show up. Hopefully, you do great, and you get the job. Where I more had like the soldier ant thing, where like I got to blaze my own trail. I'm not gonna follow what the normal things. I'm gonna go create something, produce it, and then people will come to me, and then I'll be able to own it and finance it and all of those different things. So from early on, I was writing my own pilots. I was writing my own TV shows. I was writing movie scripts. And people would be like, yo, this kid is 18, 19 years old. And I was optioning, movie scripts to studios, just because I was young and fresh. And they had never really seen anybody do that. And luckily, I was surrounded with people where it legitimized what I was actually doing. It wasn't, anybody could say, oh, I got a script idea, but luckily I was surrounded by people who was like, nah, that's a good idea. Develop that here, do this here. And I learned through that process of surrounding myself with other creatives and learn from them. So even in that film transition, which even Will was quite helpful in that too. I mean, this is a great example.
Right.
But the goal was to just write my own way, create my own way. And even still to this day, like I'm never thinking about, ooh, what job can I get? It's like, oh, what job can I create? And that's really, that's probably the secret to the sauce right there.
I don't think we've had that conversation to date, but that process of writing a script and pitching it to a network, what's that process like, right? Like, because I mean, I'm sure you're shopping it to multiple different studios.
Yeah, it's different now too. Yeah. It changes. Back then it was, you utilize the agency. And whoever was your agent, you would hopefully, they had the relationships to get you into the rooms or get your script into the room. And, they would read it over and over and get it as polished as possible. And then somebody would read it and, go out to town and hopefully somebody bought it, And film and television was different. Television was probably even more like getting a staff writing position or opportunity to work on a really cool show. And if you got, once you worked on the show, then you write a couple episodes and people, respected your voice. And then therefore that's how you got jobs around the town. But now, especially when you see, the brilliant minds of like the Issa Raes and, when you see amazing shows like Abbott Elementary, and like these are people who started off as creators and you've seen them online first, you saw them do it, and then all of a sudden, the new model is they did it themselves.
Proof of concept.
Yeah, and then the networks and the platforms came running to them. So, and it's funny because I've been preaching that to people for years, like, forget going and pitching to them, get hot and they gonna come to you.
Like an artist, like a music artist.
Simple as that. I tell everybody that, like, if you wanna, like, yo, I need the network, like, fuck networking. Like, networking is a waste of time, in my opinion. Go perfect your craft. And then all those rooms that you want to get into, they're going to be calling to get at you because you're the gift, you're the anomaly, you're the talent. It's like you instead of trying to, that's a lot of time people spend time trying to get hot as opposed to trying to create the true solid foundation of what creates the heat. So it's like once you, and like you said, it's just like music. When you are the guy,
they're gonna find you.
They're gonna find you, and that's the beauty of anything where hip hop is today. And people are always like, oh, all you gotta do is be a drug dealer and then make music and you on. But the essence of that is there's an authenticity of these tales that these people are telling, because you the hot guy in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You the hot guy on the block. You put in the work. You did the time. So now that's a level of respect and admiration that us as a culture honor. And then from there, now you could sell me whatever. You can, you know what I mean? Like, Jay-Z is probably the perfect model of that, to where it's like, once you're your authentic self, the world is gonna desire what you have to give. And if you never shake off your square, that's value, that's character, that's something that you can't teach. So I mean, in that same sense, when you're building IP, when you're coming up with an idea, it's like, be authentic to what it is and stop trying to chase shit. And if you stop trying to chase it and really work on what your passion is, or work on what your purpose is, then everything else is gonna fall in alignment.
That's what Ross has a great line. He said, being self-made give me so much leverage. And that's true. It's like even in negotiations, it's like you have so much more leverage when you don't need something, because you've actually built it organically, as opposed to just coming and them just telling you.
And the first time you do it, it ain't gonna be fly. It ain't gonna be what the potential is. But the fact that you did it on your own, you had that fortitude that it's like, oh wow, there's something there. You know what I mean? And that's like Tyler Perry, a great example. You know what I mean? Like
the best example.
He can't nobody tell him nothing. You know what I mean? And even over the years where it's like, oh, that's just a Tyler Perry movie. Now we love, appreciate, and respect everything Tyler Perry has ever done from the beginning, because we watch the process. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and now to see everything that he does is A1. You know what I mean? And however you feel about it, you gotta respect every aspect of his artistry. You gotta respect every aspect of his business, and the fact that he still continues to have the same drive. Like, that type of stuff is like, I feel like you can't teach it. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to be like, all right, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna do this. And you just have to do it. And you'll learn along the way, but you have to have that gumption from the gate to be like, I'm gonna jump out here and I'm gonna just believe in myself and do it.
It's the theory of the imperfect action.
Yeah.
Right? Just do it. It's never gonna be perfect, but people will grow with you. They'll watch the growth.
And appreciate it.
And appreciate it, because they feel like, yo, I watched when those guys were sitting in the dining room.
And it's the best form of education too, because you learn from
as you go.
So let me ask you this. All right, speaking of this ownership situation, 2005, you changed the game.
Yeah.
You have an idea, you come out with a show called Wildin' Out.
Yeah.
So everybody knows the show Wildin' Out. The first conversation I want to have is the business behind it. So I got some information, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong. So you sold the show to MTV, but you still kept ownership and licensed it. Like, can you explain?
Yeah, that's the whole everything that I just was talking about. I mean, at the time I was hot, you know what I mean? I was.
Wait, so Drumline's already out there?
Yeah, Drumline's out, my music is out, I'm doing my thing, and like, people are really trying to make me focus in those spaces. They kind of like leave TV alone, because at the time, you couldn't do it all. So everybody was like, yo, focus on being the movie star. Focus. And I was like, nah, I got this idea. And it was really to put my friends on, because I'm still doing stand-up. I'm still, making beats and signing people. Like, I was like, yo, I got this concept of pretty much what we do backstage, and I got cats I rock with, like Kevin Hart and Affion Crockett, D-Ray Davis, Cat Williams. These are people that we freestyling in on the block in front of the comedy club. And I'm like, yo, and they're literally like, man, when you gonna put us on? When you gonna put us in a movie? And I'm like, yo, this is a show right here. So I rented out a comedy club and rented cameras. We
gotta get context. At that time, these guys are not the guys who are now.
Nobody knows who these guys
you're the
are.
guy.
Yeah. Like, they don't, this is before Soul Plane, this is before Friday, this is before any of that stuff. And I'm like, yo, I got funny friends, I got super talented friends. Yeah. And of course, I grew up watching everything that we all watch, and Living Color, and Def Jam, Uptown Comedy Club, and even Whose Line, all of these things where I was inspired by all of that stuff, but I was like, yo, we don't have something for our generation, for us to literally wild out, like just to do what we want to do. And MTV didn't understand it. Before I tried the pictures, they were like, we want to do something with you, you know what I mean? And
where's the music component?
Yeah, this was like, because I had already hosted TRL a bunch. Yeah. They were trying, you want to do jams, and I'm like, I'm cool, I can host, but that's not really my vibe. I'm a comedian, I'm a rapper, and they were like, well, we got this guy Ashton Kutcher, he's doing this punk show, and I'm like, let me do my own thing. And I spent my own money. It's probably somewhere around 100, 150,000, something like that. Put it all together, edited, created the logos, put the presentation tape together, and they loved it when they saw it. And they was like, yo, they was like, we want to invest more. We want to enhance it. But luckily, my team and myself, and even, thinking, I was like, well, I know that I spent my own money. So I know I came to y'all once, and you guys didn't want to do it. And I was asking for you to fund it. I funded it and got it right, and now I have the superior negotiation.
You got the leverage.
Yeah, so I want to keep this, and I got amazingly they were like, fine, and it was at the time they were like, obviously they own the content, and that's what they were concerned about. I was like, I want to own the brand. I want to own, because I saw like the logo was dope. Yeah. I had a vision of what it could be. I was thinking curriculum and improv comedy schools like Second City and Groundlings. I was thinking that space. So I was like, if I own Wild 'N Out, then I can take it to Vegas. I was thinking all of these things, back in 2005, and they let me. It was like, yeah, you could have Wild 'N Out. And that's why, if you notice, the show has always been called Nick Cannon Presents Wild 'N Out. So it was like, I was letting you know, like, this is mine. Yeah. And we made that known from the gate. And so, interestingly enough, 2007 came, we did 50 episodes, it kind of went away. I took a break, got married, all of that type of stuff. And then when I brought it back again, still having ownership of it, and even at this time, because I was thinking about doing like a kid version on Nickelodeon, I didn't really have it, but I was like, I knew I wanted to bring it back. But in bringing it back, I had to go to the market to sell it to get money to do it again. Because even MTV's business had changed. And if you remember when I brought it back to MTV2.
Yeah.
So, and that was like the hip hop.
It was like the urban side of the network.
Even then, having ownership with it, I was thinking all of the different various platforms. I had a vision that it would ultimately be a restaurant and a tour. So I was selling even that aspect even back then. But it's, business is business. In 2017, after I had done the tours and was developing the restaurants and had merch in Macy's and, Foot Locker, every different, the brand was making money. And when Viacom took notice, like, yo, hold up. He's making money off of something, we own that, right? And we was like, well, not necessarily. And then so, negotiations, and we figure it all out. But even now, we're partners, you know what I mean, in that sense to where, and there's no better partner to have than a billion-dollar company. Because now we can continue to develop restaurants together. We can continue to develop different IP off of that. We continue to make tours and movies and things of that nature. But I've always had that leverage because from the very beginning of when I started, I paid for it myself.
So they own the content, you own the brand, but
Early
after a
on.
while it kind of merged where they're partners with you in the brand as well.
As well, yeah. And they had to pay for that. You know what I mean? Like it was some very strategic and interesting negotiations, but that's ultimately what you want. That's saying, okay, I've increased the value of this brand, and now you see the value in it, so now you got to pay me if you want to be a part of it.
So when it airs, obviously you said they own the content, you own the brand. I wonder how that works when the show gets syndicated, because like now.
But that's part of the negotiation too,
Gotcha.
and because it's funny because you bring syndication up. that business model is different now as well too, because the world of what syndication used to be is, oh, you make 100 episodes or something and you can get $100 million check, a la Seinfeld,
Friends.
I Love Lucy, Friends,
Right.
all of that type
Yeah.
of stuff. But now there's so many more platforms, and like that's light work to Netflix, you know what I mean? And now they want your whole catalog, and like I said, we've already surpassed 300 episodes of Wildin' Out. Now we're looking to build the Wildin' Out channel. Now we're looking to build the Wildin' Out network, because not only can we run, and you see it out there, we can run Wildin' Out 24/7, and you'll never see the same
Yeah,
episode.
no repeats.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's that many episodes.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So as far as, all right, so when it was taken off of the air and they tried to start a new show, how did that work? Because I know you still had the ownership rights.
Yeah, well, see, by that time, because that was 2020, so we already had a deal of, we're partners now, so, and that's why a lot of that was kind of, it kind of broke my heart a little bit, because like, yo, we just got down, you know what I mean? Like, we really just kind of figured it all out, and then now we're in a scenario to where it's not really what we
Agreed upon.
yeah, and then so, but I think a lot of it too was speculative in what people just they started creating their own narratives. So, you know, I think it was always of an understanding that business is gonna be business and we were gonna figure it out. I got hot-headed initially. Like, I'm gonna keep it a stack with you. When it all went down, I was like, man, fuck all that. Like, I was really, you know, I mean, I was on my pro-black guy, you know what I mean? Like, talking to Puff, and we like, you know, like we are what we, you know, and
Owned by a black man.
yeah, I was on,
Yeah.
which is how we should be.
Yeah.
But also in that understanding was I started to realize that I had created a brand that was feeding hundreds, if not thousands of people and giving them opportunities.
Right.
But I was so ready to step away from Wildin'. I didn't want to do it no more. I'm like 40 years old. I mean, I like, you know what, this is good for this, so some Chappelle shit. I'm gonna go ahead and go to Africa. like
Keep that 50 mil.
Yeah. Like, and even, and that's, I always tell people this, like, and shouts out to Dave, because I learned a lot from Dave in that situation, because I was on the road with Dave when all of that went down, and so I saw his whole get down. But that was a speculative 50 million. That was, if you do this, you will get 50 million. I walked away literally from that level of money, if not more, and just was like, I'm good. And it's like, I did that, you know, at America's Got Talent. I did that this time around. So people in the industry know, like, oh, he's not afraid to just walk away.
Yeah.
And not only is he not afraid to just walk away, he'll walk away and create something else that will make him more money than the thing that he walked away from.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, because America's Got Talent, obviously you were the host,
Yeah.
#1 show on TV. I wonder at a certain...
And executive producer at the time.
So that's because I always saw your name at the end too. And so are you going into some of those opportunities with the mindset of equity? Because I know ownership is a big thing for you, because you went from that to now, like, my favorite show with my family that we watch, The Masked Singer.
Yeah.
And so, like, are you positioning yourself in those type of scenarios where it's like, all right, I'll do this, maybe I'll take less on the pay, but I need equity in this?
100%. Or, I mean, it's even more than that, because again, I don't like when people offer me jobs. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
I don't
right.
like jobs. I like to create. I like to work. You know what I mean? I like to be a part of something, but I like to work on something that I created. And in that sense of learning from America's Got Talent, like, I can't front, when I first started at America's Got Talent, NBC, that was a job. I got a job. It was a great paying job. But I did so many seasons and negotiations and brought my sauce to it. So by then, I'm a producer on the show, and now I'm thinking with deals, I'm thinking like, all right, now I love Simon Cowell, that's my brother. I need my own America's Got Talent. And I'm watching him print money, and it's the biggest show in the world, and it's Britain's Got Talent, and everybody's got talent. And he's like, it's the biggest franchise in television. I'm like, all right, if I get an opportunity, my next deal, I'm now, even to this day, I'm thinking, what's my next big IP like that? What's my next show? What's my next Masked Singer? So even when I went into the deal, when I left NBC, and went to Fox, they would come in and pitch all different type of stuff, and I'm like, I want the next big thing. I got to figure it out, and I had to have the insight and the understanding, and I chose The Masked Singer, and still the #1 show on television in that space. So it's like, obviously I ain't gonna act like I'm this wizard when it comes to, but there's definitely some alignment that has to go along with the process. But it's also about sticking your neck out and saying, I'm gonna take this chance.
So that's your show.
Yeah.
The Masked Singer.
Yeah, I'm executive producer.
So are you involved in the other? There's like I saw like there was one they were ice skating.
Dancers.
The Masked Dancer. Like, are you involved in the franchise in that sense?
Yeah, I think at the time it's no longer. That was a good idea that we tried.
Yeah.
But it's like I think what I wish I could be involved in is the same thing, because it actually started. The reason why I even chose that show, it wasn't an original concept. It was a Korean show.
It felt like it came from
Asia.
And
I just put the American sauce on it.
Yeah.
So if I was able to participate in every single one of the Masked Singers around the world, it's $1 billion business.
Yeah.
So now my goal is like, all right, how do I create an original idea in that sense that has that same level of success? And that's where my deals are set up now, to where like that's the goal, to come up with that next Masked Singer that incredible, and I own 100%.
So in a sense, Wild 'N Out really is the $1 billion business.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You got the touring,
100%.
you got the merch,
The restaurants.
yeah, brick and mortar.
Just double down on what's working.
Yeah, and so I read that it's coming to Harlem, like the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
How's that gonna work?
Well, first we're gonna do Hollywood first.
Hollywood, okay.
Yeah. That's our next one, and then the goal. I've been trying to build and kind of invest in Harlem for the last few years.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, I love it. It's the crib,
Yeah.
and so being able to do that, it's needed. You know what I mean? And it's where it's the mecca. It's the nucleus of all of our entertainment culture. So to be able to feed back into that space, and then probably we'll go from Atlanta and then different spaces. And I got some great business partners that are helping me, build that. I always say like one of the people who again, I wasn't the first person to think of it. Magic Johnson was another person who knew how to invest into our communities and saw the value in our communities and was investing in Harlem, put Magic Johnson Theaters up there
125th.
Before they started, gentrifying
early.
the area. You know what I mean? He was investing. He was putting Starbucks in the hood.
Mm-hmm.
He was putting theaters in the hood, TGI Fridays. And I'm like, I just want to do that. Like, can I do what Magic did? And that's when when I sit down and have my meetings, I'm like, I don't want to do what Quincy did. I want to do what Magic did. And it's just really learning from the guys that did it before us. But now we have so much more opportunities to do
Learning and executing.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you this: as far as the real estate play, you invested in real estate early, as far as like in Los Angeles, I believe, some areas that wasn't obvious to the eye. So talk about your real estate portfolio and what made you get into real estate.
Only thing about real estate, because I'm gonna say I would love to have the real estate success story, but I probably lost as much money in real estate as I've made money, because I was investing in times in like 2008. You know what I mean?
And too high. You brought too high.
Or even just like another thing that I've learned is like, especially when you become a part of these investment groups and real estate organizations, which are good because you can put in a little bit of money or a certain amount and still have ownership and see great upside. But what do you really own? You know what I mean? When you're a part of land that
100 people are involved.
100 people own.
It's like a syndicate, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's cool to say I own that. It's cool to drive by and say, or you feel cool to go to this restaurant and say.
That doorknob? That's mine.
Yeah, it's cool to say that, but I mean, like, how much of that is really just vanity? How much of that is really just the ego to being like, oh yeah, I've invested in 17 hotels, and like, I feel like there's different levels of real estate, and even in buying homes, which, you know, is, as we all know, can be quite lucrative, but can also, depending on where the market is, you can find yourself upside down in it. And it's like, I always tell people to invest in land, but if I'm really talking investment, I say invest in IP before land. Land is great to have, but at the end of the day, you know, that's going to be the levels of wealth on how it's measured, but you gotta really own it. And then when you say you really own it, what does that really mean? You know what I mean? Like, what can you do with that land? Like, I've owned property where, you know, I own the building, but I don't own the land. Like, how does that even work? You know what I mean? Like it's certain things like that where there's structures now to where I'm still learning that process, because early on, people are like, oh, you gotta invest in here, or put your money here, or put your money there. And it sounds good, it feels good, and I've learned from a lot of these individuals who've built these investment groups or who own half of Hollywood, and I'm learning, I'm like, all right, I'll put in on that, but like, when we having the conversations about returns, I'm like, wait a second, like, I gave you this, and
somebody get that calculator.
Yeah, you invited me to a bunch of cool parties.
Wait, what?
But do I get my money back?
It was a
that's the Joe Pesci in Casino.
Yeah.
I think I want my money back. I think I want my money back.
So again, I'm learning. You know what I mean? And it's and even like with Wildin' Out, like it's like as we build brick and mortar and restaurants, it's like, I guarantee you, and you know, we all saw, you know, the McDonald's movie with Michael Keaton and stuff. Like, it was like, you know, that was a real estate play.
Yep.
And it was a great way to start, but you know, now looking at it, the IP of McDonald's is probably worth way more than that real estate land that they were focusing on at that time. So I'm seeing the bigger picture. It was like, all right, if I can make Wildin' Out the billion-dollar company, and the brick and mortar, we're not looking to buy the land. We're looking to put Wildin' Out in these facilities that we lease at the time and understand it as we franchise this space out, looking to build the next TGI Fridays or Hooters or, you know.
Dave & Buster's.
Dave & Buster's. Yeah. Like, there's never been a franchise hip-hop sports bar. You might have one here and there, but one to where it's at the same level as a Dave & Buster's, or at the same level as, you know, a Fridays or something of that nature. It's like, that's where my mindset is, opposed to like, all right, how do I invest in real estate? Because real estate, when we sit in conversations like this, it sounds like, at least it sounds cool to say.
Sexy word.
Yeah. I own this and this. And
look
like,
at my portfolio.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or even like, you know, how many homes you have, and you know, we've all go through this. You want to buy your mom a home, a grandma, but my pops, I want to make sure. But even it's that level of like, all right, am I getting you into the home and we owning it how 100%? We got deeds, or we playing the real estate mortgage game? And then, you know, I'm up this year, but where am I at next year? So I've kind of done my ups and downs in that space too. And like I said, we learning and growing, but I invest most of my time, energy, and money into the IPs.
But also with the IP it's also about valuations as well.
I was just thinking that.
So now it's like, okay, you're building up your portfolio in the restaurants, in the touring, and now it's like, that's bringing in, let's say, $100 million. Now you get a 10x valuation. Now that's a big
$1 billion.
Now you can actually take it public to the stock market.
That was my thing, because once we said Dave & Buster's, I think I knew the answer to the question, and I'm like, let me just see. Like, are we thinking publicly traded?
That's obviously because it's my partners with Viacom, so that's it. But to your point, you know, the brand of Incredible.
I was going there next.
Yeah.
You have to, right? Because I'm thinking like, that brand definitely has a trajectory to be $1 billion. So we can see it. Incredible. I looked at the list of things that you do. I'm like, wait, this also has the type of
and this is what created that.
Right. So we got, I don't want to miss anything. I'll let you do it.
I think I got it. Entertainment,
studios,
motorsports, backpack collection, and a line of ties.
Yeah, fitness.
Headphones?
Yeah, headphones. That's where I really figured it out. You know, I think we did close to like 200 million in sales in headphones from 2010 to date. And I was like, oh, this is real, you know what I mean? And it just is a brand to where you can figure out, you could diversify it in many different ways. And now even selling the idea of what we've built And in the process of like, you know, I started Incredible in 2009. I mean, I had productions and things of that before, but 2009 is when I was like this, in with the goal of building it up in a way to where it has, it. Not only did I build IPs up under it, but then it has its own evaluation to where this is, my mind was like, I'm trying to build the next Sony. I'm trying to build the next Apple. Like though at that, you know, at 2009 it was Sony, you know what I mean? Today it's Apple.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, I feel like there's something there because I know I'm gonna have to be in business with the Viacoms or the Foxes or the NBCs to create shows with them. But if Incredible is what creates the show, then now something that I created that I own 100% can now have that brand evaluation.
So let's talk about this headphone situation. 200 million. I don't want to just breeze over that. What's the science on that?
It's funny because obviously, I mean, granted, I got into the headphone business with the brilliant mind of Noel Lee, who created Monster, which also created, you know, Beats by Dre early on. And so like he's the godfather of the space. And it was around the same time when it actually had, I'll tell the story. It's funny. Me and Jimmy Iovine was super cool. I had a couple of acts signed over at Interscope, and I remember I was in his office and I was trying to get one of my acts, you know, some more money. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know, he was trying to shoot videos and like there was an offshoot, they had a movie deal. I was like, yo, I just need you to really give these kids a shot. And he was like, I'll do whatever you want to do, but you just gotta put these headphones on these kids and we gotta develop something for Nickelodeon, and I'm gonna need you to do me a favor in a couple of weeks with these headphones. I'm like, all right, you just go, as long as you like that, you giving me product, you want to do some stuff. And I remember I get the call like a couple weeks later, he's like, yo, Dr. Dre doesn't want to leave his house. I need you to go to Florida. I need you to go to Florida and do what you do on TV for the Home Shopping Network. I want you to like host it like you're hosting, you know, one of your shows, and just talk about how great the headphones are. Robin Thicke is gonna be there, he's gonna sing. You're gonna talk about the headphones. Dre's gonna call you on the phone, and you're gonna talk to Dre from his house about how great these headphones are. And I was like, all right. So I fly down to Florida. That's exactly what happened. Robin Thicke performed, I talked to Dre, it's like a little setting like this. We're talking about how great these headphones are. Headphones sell through the roof. Record-breaking numbers on the Home Shopping Network. And that's the story that they use to propel Beats by Dre. And like literally when that show was over, he called me, he was like, kid, you were great. Whatever you need, you know what I mean? Yeah. You're signing your acts, all that. Like me and Jimmy hit off. The next phone call I got was from Noel Lee. And he was like, yo, you are amazing. He's like, but you should have your own headphones. And I was like, you right. And so at the same time, while they were building Beats by Dre, I was building Incredible. And where Beats by Dre cost $300+, mine cost $99. So they went to all of the high-end stores. We went to Walmart. And the same product. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and like we made like smaller versions first before, like, cause the Beats by Dre were super big. Yeah. Ours were smaller, but we also did the bigger ones. And because of the Walmart business, that was the bulk of the business out the gate. So, but nobody really, like we were Walmart, you know what I mean? So like Beats by Dre was sexy. We did commercials and all of that stuff too. And we was having fun. We was getting to the bag, but it wasn't the Beats by Dre story. And again, in learning business, Beats by Dre figured it out. Jimmy figured it out, left Noel, however it was, sold it to another company. Then that company gave him $300 million and sold it to Apple, built, game over. Yeah. Me, I was like, I'm gonna rock with Noel. You know what I mean? And then from there, brand stayed with Noel. And then my next play, no offense, but I went and took mine to Radio Shack. And then, but it was, again, an affinity brand. I was like, ooh, maybe I could flip this, having the dreams of like, oh, imagine there's still brick and mortar Radio Shacks at the time. I feel like there was like 2,000 of them. I was like, ooh, maybe and we started doing multiple, like there was a moment where I had like 10 or 12 different products in Radio Shack. Yeah. And it was my store. I was, you know, the chief creative officer when those titles were being thrown around, and it was a vibe. We was doing commercials, and I was in Radio Shack as well as Office Depot too. So that's how we did backpacks and school supplies.
Yeah, so were you looking at it from the standpoint of like, they're in Best Buy, I'll go here?
100%.
Got you.
Like the margins were better here too.
Yeah.
Like even in the, well, I mean the margins weren't better because obviously they were making the same product and they were selling for 3 times as high.
Yeah.
But the bulk, Walmart was ordering way more because they're Walmart and because the price was a lot less. So but that, you know, obviously when learning and getting into the weeds of the business, when you know, to do 16 colorways of the same headphone, you might get the big order, but when the ultra pink don't sell and when the camouflage don't sell, that go all back to the warehouse and you got to eat that cost. Oof. And so even when you get, you know, evaluates 200 million sales and stuff, it's like, all right, well, what do you do with that? When, you know, great story of how all your sell-through, but when you still got a warehouse full of product.
Back to school sales.
Yeah, right. And then
Yeah.
and I'm at the mercy of all of these other distributors and manufacturers. So at this point in the game, and again, it's like based off of my energy and what I put my time and invest into, it's like, is it worth chasing headphones still to this day? Like that was, you know, 10 years ago, you wouldn't see me without my headphones. We'd be sitting here talking all about headphones and sound and all of that. I was like, yeah, let's do this. Can I have my DJ set up here? Give everybody headphones. But now it's like, all right, well, when you think about, is that the $1 billion play? Is that or is it the actual brand in itself opposed to the product that we put the brand on?
So the brand, talk about the brand. So the brand is broad ranging from a variety of different things, like a umbrella approach.
Yeah, I think based off of and it's unique in that sense because I hate saying, because it's definitely not a lifestyle brand. That was a buzzword for quite some time. Like, oh, we creating a lifestyle brand. But this is more an inspirational, educational brand in that sense of where it gives you the opportunity to see what I've done and be a part of that process. And to be able to sit here and, you know, it's really, I mean, our slogan was always be incredible. So in that space of when we're operating in fitness, when we're creating IP through television or film, when we do have a product that it's like, okay, how do you aggregate the process of the IP of incredible? So, and again, I've stolen that model from the spaces like Apple, Sony, you know what I mean? Like I remember when I was like, yo, Sony makes TVs and the stuff that comes on TV. Like that, like I want to do that, you know what I mean? Like in that sense, and you know, I remember, you know, I've been to Korea and sat with Samsung, and I remember when they were even like talking about, it's no longer gonna be about cable. It's gonna be like, we're gonna make the TV, and on the remotes in the TV, the buttons are gonna be the new networks, are gonna be new cable. I'm like, what are y'all talking about?
The apps, yeah.
Year later, it's Netflix, it's Roku, it's, you know, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. Like, so like now even all these brands, they just trying to be the button on the remote. If you the button on the remote, you win. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and even in now, you know, even now, because it ain't even about TV no more. So if you're the thing when you turn on your Apple phone, if you don't even got to download it, it's already there. Yeah. Then now you got millions, if not billions, of people already knowing your logo, your brand, and what you represent. So like that's the goal. Like that's always been, you know, when it comes to diversifying, is like having Incredible be a household name of upward mobility.
Is there something inside of the brand that you haven't acquired yet? Like you're looking at it and it's like, if we could just add this piece, this would complete or for the time being, complete some of our diversification. Like there's one thing that we need to add.
Education. That's my whole play. Like even really understanding of how important education, and it's funny, like, you know, we've always used the buzz terms of like education is wealth. Which is very true, but I'll even take it a step further. It's like the true currency is energy. And it's like when you apply those two together to where you're putting energy into understanding and the know-how, and you're giving the game. You know what I mean? Like it's what we're doing right here.
Right.
You know what I mean? We all know the value of what this is. That's why there's so many people in this room. That's why they all getting paid.
Don't mind them.
No, but it's what you guys are doing on a daily basis from your shows, your podcasts. You're offering education. You're offering information that is invaluable, that will go on, like somebody's gonna be watching us sitting here 20 years from now, talking, and all of this information is valuable. And like I always say, content is king, but true educational content is king. Like entertainment is fun. Yeah. Everybody gonna wanna sit back and turn their mind off, but when it's something that allows you to grow and shows that not only I took that and I became better, I became richer, I became, wiser through this process. If I can implement that, and from a lot of the stuff I've been doing in the HBCUs, a lot of things that you guys do, I do in a similar fashion. My foundation is all about, we do a youth summit annually called ATM, and it's really American Teen Moguls, where we take a 6-week course and we give high school students the opportunity to create a business plan. We teach them what it is, how it is, and then it's almost like this young entrepreneur Olympics that we allow them to pitch it to a board of everyone from people from Shark Tank to my lawyers, to Kevin Hart, I set it up, every year, and we give grants and scholarships or seed money for whatever it is that they're funding. And it's just like that financial literacy starting at, high school levels, and working with HBCUs and understanding that we're just building curriculums and ideas for, one, generating opportunities, but then also like truly showing this is, like I said, a brand of upward mobility.
So it was ironic because I had this in my brain to ask you, but I didn't have it in my notes. And then rest in peace, Nip, they was playing him, and he right before we came on, he said they killed Dr. Sebi. He was teaching health.
Yeah.
So he was working on a documentary for Dr. Sebi. Obviously, he wasn't able to complete that. You picked up the baton for that?
Absolutely, and it's funny because we had no idea that the pandemic was going to happen in the midst of it. And it's still something, we're in post right now. We've been in post for a while because of so many, like now, the pandemic is part of the documentary. So we've had to go back and redo interviews and talk to but it's a powerful story. And in that sense, in love and respect to both Nip's family as well as Dr. Sebi's family, who have all been extremely helpful and cooperative in this collaborative effort and wanting to do it right. And that's the thing, it's like we taking our time because we don't want to mess it up. And it's precious information of, one, it's something that I know that my brother Nip wanted to put forth. But then also it's this legacy of this man, Dr. Sebi, that our culture admires. And there's many debates about his life and after his life, and the worlds that he operated in as a herbalist and a holistic practitioner. So we're in a space now where we got hours and hours of footage, and it's even more interesting because when we started it, there wasn't that many buyers or platforms per se that would give you an opportunity to sell 6 hours or present 6 hours of content. And so we started on the idea of we're just gonna make the best award-winning hour-and-a-half documentary we possibly can. But now we have all of this footage. We've been going through this process. It's been a few years now. It's like, man, and you watch with,
Kanye.
The Kanye doc, or you watch it and you're like, all right, well,
10-part series.
Yeah, so it's like now even the business model is more of an interesting way. And I think we're probably still gonna lean towards the process of here's the story in a very easily digestible hour and a half, But then after that, what we gonna do with all of the other footage? Because I mean, so many people drop so much game and so much wisdom in here. It's like I just want to. That was my thing. It's like it's so much.
Yeah.
I want everything to get in there, and it's like telling the correct narrative because you're dealing with people's legacies. So you don't want to just throw something out there because we've seen that so many times to where the whole purpose of it is to tell the truth. If there's one thing that I've been trying to stand firm on through my entire career is authenticity and speaking truth. You know, to the detriment of sometimes it's like, yo, the truth, people are scared of the truth. People, sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes the truth it can cause controversy. So in that sense, I want to be able to always speak truth and stand firm on the truth. And really, it's like in those senses, I think the minister even said it the best to me when he was like, a lie doesn't care who tells it, but the truth you never have to defend. So in that sense of wanting to make sure I'm always speaking truth, it takes time. You know what I mean? Because you got to present it the right way.
But even like you said, the business model of like selling it to the networks, but the business model of how does that work? If he was working on something, you had to like pay his family? Or?
Nah, interesting. I mean, and that's the thing too, where again, in full transparency, Nip never got the opportunity.
Okay. He had the idea.
Yeah, he never shot anything. He might have had a few conversations. So, and the same people that he had been talking to, I've been talking to as well. And that was something that we had in common.
Okay.
Of, Dr. Sabi's family and, me being diagnosed with lupus. The family had always been reaching out to me, and even through, I believe it was one time Nip was like, yo, you talk to them because I know you got like he was really concerned about my health. And I was like, yeah, I've been talking, Dr. Sabi's, original spot is right there in the hood, like right, not too far, in South Central. So it was always a community that we all knew the same people. So that's kind of that's where he and I would have a lot of conversations where we would bond on. So it was only right for me to kind of be in that space. So as a person who produces content and does this, he was trying to pick my brain. I'm like, how do you do that? How do you make a documentary? How do you make and I'm like, all right, well, I got this. I know I have everything that it takes with them incredible to do it. So I knew this is something he wanted to do, so I'm gonna make sure it gets done.
Talking about producing September 27, 2021.
Yeah.
The Nick Cannon Show debuts.
Yeah, facts.
My mom loved it. I loved it. But recently it wasn't renewed. I want to know the lessons that you've learned from that, because I mean, to me, I'm like, this is well produced.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're a great talent as a host.
Yeah.
Great segments. I even like the wrap up. That was,
like,
integrating the brands.
Yeah.
But tell me some of the lessons from.
Man, so many lessons. I'm still learning lessons from that because I went into it as a businessman, thinking that, the space of syndicated television is. We watch Oprah become a billionaire in this space. We watch Ellen generate hundreds of millions. We've watched Dr. Phil and many others, generate hundreds of millions of dollars. And obviously in prime time, I've generated hundreds of millions of dollars. So I'm like, I have value in this space. So I've found partners, who do this and became 50-50 partners with them in trusting, because I've never made a daytime talk show before. I've never been in the space of syndicated television. So I was a student through the whole process. And probably one of the biggest lessons is I probably should have bossed up a lot earlier, because once I got in, it started to feel like work. It started to feel like people were telling me what I had to do in order to be successful. In order to be the next whoever they deemed as the person who was the best in that space, Ellen, Oprah, whoever we want, and the greatest lesson was like, man, if I would have just did it my way from the beginning, starting with the business model, because let's be honest, who really watches a television anymore? Like you said, our you know what I mean? It's an old-fashioned forum and if I'm trying to present something new on an old-fashioned forum, might not be the quickest way to the bag, might not be the quickest way to the audience. Because if we, like, let's be honest, like more people saw my talk show content on Instagram and TikTok and on YouTube than they saw on television, because they were like, what time it come on? What channel?
I'm at work.
Yeah. But we were till this day still the #1 talk, because it's still on right now. Yeah. The #1 talk show in digital. Like
on social media?
On social media, like my show, my clips from my show.
You always see your clips.
Go viral. And like I was just eating a Snicker and a pickle, like yesterday, it got millions of views. Like it's just stuff like that, to where I know how to get eyeballs. I know how to make great content. But in that model, I'm like, ooh, I'm not making the level. I'm not making Oprah money. I'm not making Ellen money off top, and I'm not really jiving with what people are telling me I need to do, opposed to where normally in a scenario, I trust my gut, I trust my instinct. And if I had to do it all over again, which I am doing it all over again.
I know that's coming. Yeah.
I'm doing it myself, and I'm doing it the way I should have done it from the gate. And it's not about, trying to find what time it comes on in the TV guide, and some cities it comes on at 2 a.m.
They still make TV guide?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Some cities it comes on at 2 a.m. Some cities it comes on at 11 a.m. Some cities it come on at 4. And it's like, how do you aggregate? How do you get the collective together if one of y'all videos go up, everybody knows how to watch it, and they know exactly how many people watched it in the comments? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's the new model.
Yeah.
The new model isn't like, ooh, it came on at 11. I hope people watched it.
I DVR'd it.
Yeah. You're not making money that way. And it's hard to curate and even create for an audience that you're hoping is watching, and some person with some analytics somewhere is telling you your value, opposed to like, nah, I see the numbers. People fuck with the content.
Who is Nielsen anyway?
Yeah, right. But even like, it's an outdated model. You know what I mean? And especially in this day and age, to where, all right, we got the real numbers. Like, y'all speculating and doing averages and old school math, when it's like, no, this many people saw it. They said this many people liked it, and and it's like, but sometimes it's such a, dinosaurs move slow. You know what I mean? Like in that process of like, they don't want that model to change because they've been getting bags off of it that way. Yeah. But if we're talking about new models and how to generate new money, you got to do it the new way.
You bring up a very good point, because that's a very good point, because the transparency can lead to a lot of issues. Steve Harvey was saying that he never got paid on any back-end deals, and part of that is because you don't really know. You don't know how many people actually watch the show. You don't know how many.
They make up the numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something that even like with social media and YouTube, even though you can kind of manipulate it, but you still see it. If a video has 1 million views.
And everybody sees it.
Everybody sees it. The transparency is there. And because it's like, it's a lot of comments. It's trending on social media. So you can't come and say it only did 100,000 views. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So do you think that in the future we'll see that YouTube social media transparency for movies and television?
100%. Obviously, I don't know how. Like I said, the dinosaurs move slow. Like they got a hold.
Don't be a dinosaur.
like they got a hold on the game. It's one last little generation. Like, yo, we done made billions this way, and we've been getting money together. We don't want it to change. But if you think about, if I'm an advertiser, and I know exactly how many millions of people saw this content, I'm gonna put my soft drink ad, my makeup ad, whatever, at the front of that, because I know millions of people, opposed to something that I gotta wait to see the average of what person in the household and hope that they were there. But that's the old model. The new model is like, no, I guarantee you 2 million people saw this, and then they comment about if they liked what it is.
And here's how long they watched it.
Yeah. Time spent listening or watching, and where I think somebody saw your commercial, like they probably got up and walked away and went to the refrigerator. So that new process of integrating whatever it is into the content, And then also the way we receive the content. We're walking around with devices in our pocket, like built-in jukeboxes, built-in movie theaters, built-in advertising mechanisms in our pockets each and every day. That's the way. That's going to be the way the old antiquated process has to go away. They just don't want it to go away because there's too many billionaires that are still getting billions that way.
Yeah, they can manipulate numbers all the time.
They do.
Yeah.
And it's like, unless you have a forensic accountant come in,
Yeah.
that's a whole process.
And then it's like, oh yeah, this show went #1 for this and got a 2.4.
And
What
I'm
the
like,
hell
I've
does
never
that
seen
mean?
one person watch it.
I honestly
It
thought I'm
happens
like
all the time.
2.4. Does that mean 2.4 million in the country? Like,
Yeah.
how does this work?
And then like the core demographic really got
Yeah.
a 6, and I'm like, how many people saw the shit?
The only count, like I'm like the only numbers that I'm looking like how many people watch the biggest sporting event, because that's where most of the population is watching.
But
Right.
even now, people are watching the Super Bowl on their iPhone.
they have
on
different
YouTube,
ways to watch it, yeah.
It's different ways,
Yeah, it's
streaming
changing.
services. Before we wrap, I got to ask you about the Soul Train situation. That's a legendary vibe.
Yeah.
You bringing that back?
Man, that was originally, I had invested in one. I used to be a Soul Train dancer, and then, like that was when part of that '90s hustle. Used to go over to Paramount
Every
and stay.
Saturday.
Yeah,
You think you did everything?
Stand
like Forrest,
outside.
it's like
the,
Forrest
the
Gump.
It was the
greatest
hustle.
showman,
Yeah.
right?
You like the Black Forrest Gump. I didn't know about that.
Facts. I used to call Dick Gregory that all the time. Like, you was in everything in our culture. But because I had an affinity for the brand and got a chance to know Don Cornelius and stuff, there was an opportunity, you know, in the early 2000s, or you know, probably in the teens, where I got an opportunity to invest in Soul Train, and that was when I had my deal at NBC, and myself and Jesse Collins were producing Soul Train and it was gonna be NBC, and I was bringing it back Saturday mornings type of vibe, and then we were gonna rerun it on, we're gonna do Friday nights on NBC and rerun it on Saturday mornings on VH1. And I had put that whole deal together. And then in that deal process, it just got murky, and I left NBC and all of that, and then ended up, you know, selling my shares, and BET bought the whole thing. So
You
like,
still got the award show.
yeah, exactly. So now it's I believe it's still, you know, I know they're doing a Broadway musical that I'm a part of. They're still doing great things with the brand, and it's still an iconic brand. And you know, Questlove, who you know worked with me on when we were bringing the show back, is kind of still heading a lot of the creative stuff for that, which you know it's in perfect hands with him. So, you know, wherever I can help and be of assistance, but I kind of jumped out of that business when I kind of left NBC.
Let me ask you this. You just did a movie with our guy, Jim Jones. Shout out to Jimmy.
Yeah.
But when you do these kind of movies, I always was curious about this. Where it go? I think it went straight to BT, right?
We made it for VH1.
VH1.
Yeah.
Like, can you give me an overview of how that business model works? Like, do they just give you an upfront lump sum, or is it licensed where you get a payment for amount of people that actually watch it? Like,
It's so many different ways, but that one specifically, you know, VH1 was looking to do a bulk of Christmas movies, and I was so focused on Harlem. Like we were actually looking to do a Harlem Christmas special. That's what I went in there pitching. Like, yo, we could do something at the Apollo, bring a lot of people from Harlem, and kind of do like the old-fashioned Christmas specials, and it could be great. And they were like, yeah, but we're doing Christmas movies. Would you want to do one of those? Like, everything, all right, you know what I mean? So I was like, I direct, I act, I write. So I kind of just, in that fashion, kept the same motto of like people from Harlem. So I always wanted Jim to be in it. I always wanted Tiana Taylor. I mean, I have a strong gospel background, so I wanted to have them. And so what we originally did, we kind of took the idea of what I wanted to do for the special and kind of turned it into a film. But in that same regard, you know, I also produce, write, and direct my own film projects. From, you know, I did one in Jamaica with Busta Rhymes and Whoopi Goldberg and Lou Gossett Jr. called King of the Dance Hall. I did a film about the gentrification of Inglewood and street ball and female basketball called She Ball that we did with Birdman and Chris Brown and so many in DC Young Fly. So I'm always looking to fully fund my own projects, produce it from the gate. It's an incredible entity, and then from that point, sell it to different platforms. So those are right there, two different business models where, you know, Viacom can say, here's X amount of millions of dollars, go make this for us. Or I can say, here, I want to put up my own money and with my own idea, my own IP, and then put it forth. So those are two different models that, you know, as Incredible, we operate in all the time.
Incredible insight.
You've had so many different stages, from entertainer, activist, now you're in your mogul phase. It's like, it's a constant evolution. Like, what's the 5-year vision look like? What's your team, and what's your plans? Like, 'cause I feel like you're growing as a person.
Yeah, it's so exciting right now, but it's so scary all at the same time. I'm not gonna front, because it's almost like it's changing by the day, and it's growing by the day. You know what I mean? Just the excitement that I have for Incredible and my team, and like, you know, the music department is growing exponentially. The television department is growing exponentially. The film department, like, but then also, like we're saying, like the evaluation of the things that we've already created, like people are taking notice and really understanding. So, I mean, I have such a strong and diverse team, and that everybody kind of knows their lane and kind of feeds it into that. So I feel like that's what's allowed me to kind of, you know, I've always had an issue with delegating. As, you know, like I always tell people, like, I'm a great leader, but I'm a horrible boss. Like, I can inspire, I can get people motivated, but like, I'm not a good boss. Like, I'm too nice, I don't care enough. Like, I don't take stuff seriously. But you need a team you need a team of bosses that know how to take their lane and department and run it up. And I can, like I said, I'm a creative at heart. I mean, I want to be a great businessman. I want to be a mogul and all that stuff. But at my core, I'm a creator. I'm a storyteller. I'm a person who understands IP and how to, you know, entertain and connect with individuals. So I need a strong team around me who know how to execute. And therefore, I had to learn how to delegate. I've had to learn how to say, all right, you got that. This is my inspiration. This is my vision. Take it, run with it, and get it right. Bring it back to me when it's right. And I think as any mogul, any boss, any leader, that's probably one of the greatest lessons that you have to learn, where you have to trust your team, you have to trust the process, and allow people to be the bosses within your infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I can't walk away before we talk about the music really quickly, because you brought it up, and obviously we saw you, we grew with you.
Yeah.
I remember Gigolo.
Facts.
But now you got
Gigolo was legend. That was legendary.
You got Raw and B, so the passion is still there to create music, and are we looking to find the talents in those areas as
You know
well?
what? It's so many levels. I mean, again, like, you know, people who know the story that I'm a music man at heart. Like, think about everything that we said in here, talked about, is all music related, from Masked Singer, Wildin' Out, headphones. It's like I'm in the music. I probably made more money off of music than anything. But as the aspect of where the business is, like, music moves the culture. And for me, as a real musician, like growing up in the church, play whatever instrument, all of that type of stuff, it's therapeutic for me. So it checks so many different boxes for me. As an artist, I'm a musician. You know what I mean? As a businessman, I'm a music man. Like, some of your favorite artists, I ushered the way for them to be who they are, got them their deal or whatever it is, you know, in the same likes of the people I grew up admiring, like L.A. Reid, the Russells, the Quincy's, like I wanted to be those guys, J.D., Puff. Like, I never wanted to be the dude in front. And that's kind of where, like, if you saw how I got down throughout my career, I wasn't trying to be the dopest rapper. I wasn't trying to be, I could sing all my life. I never it wasn't cool to sing coming up. Like, I was just, you know what I mean? Like, like Drake switched that up for all of us. And like, hey,
I'll be out there singing.
Yeah.
Certified lover boy.
So, but like now, even as I'm getting older and more mature in my space, I'm like, yo, I want to be able to still do what Quincy did. I want to be able to compose. I want to be able to, you know, create Broadway shows and, you know, and really exercise my muscles in that sense. And the crazy shit is, like, I'm in a space where in my life it's so crazy and my people are so interested and invested in my personal life. The one place where I get to speak my truth is in my music. And so it's like, it's come full circle to where I used to be like, yeah, nah, I don't have time to be an artist. I got to focus on being the head of the label. I don't have time to you know, I got to go do this movie. And like now it's like, wow, I'm at a space now where I actually can be an artist, but also still own a brand and a platform where I can continue to sign acts. I continue to not just sign, but now give the game to and educate and give them the tools that I didn't have because of this new model, to where it's like, all right, I don't want to just sign you to my label. I want to be your partner. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I want to give you I want to show you what I didn't know. I want to educate you to where all the mistakes that I made and everything from publishing and signing to this person and that person, like, and that's why if you ever know any of the artists I work with, I was like, I don't want nothing from you. If I didn't write on the song, I don't want publishing. Like if I didn't produce, I don't want to, because I can write and produce. So yeah. I'm good in that space. Where a lot of these people who don't write or produce that's the only way they eat, because they got to get somebody's publishing in order for them to be successful. So I believe in myself so much in the space of music that all I want to do is give other people opportunity while I express myself as an artist as well.
Nick, I appreciate the time, my brother.
No doubt.
We gotta chop it up again, man. And anything that we can do to help. That's why a lot of times people just try to like just take from people, but
yeah,
you know, if we could be of any help as far as on the education side, anything like that, man, feel free. We really appreciate what you've done in the space. But before
we got to continue to build.
For sure. Yeah. Before we leave, man, can you just give a rundown? I know you got too many to name, but a rundown of some of the things that you're most excited about and what you want the people to know about.
Man, under the brand of Incredible, man, we got, you know, obviously we talked about the Dr. Sebi documentary and a couple other. Following that, we got some more documentaries about empowering the black community, specifically black men. We got some, again, new talk platforms that are the new model of how talk shows should be presented, and it's going to be more than one, you know what I mean? And so I get the opportunity to flex the muscles that you saw on daytime now in a bunch of different spaces, and we have some great new partners. But probably more than anything, man, I'm super excited about this music space and just where the music industry is right now, of giving young artists the opportunity to do what I did, but then at the same time do it better, and to have ownership of their brand and ownership of their content. At the same time, using that same model myself. And like you said, the Raw and B project, and then from there, you know, I got the album Ghetto Blues that is coming after that. We hit the road into May for the Wildin' Out tour globally, which is there's a Wildin' Out film, the retrospective event. So it's almost like, we're not gonna call it like Jay did with Fade to Black, where it's like a concert film.
Oh, no,
like,
life.
Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of like if Kings of Comedy met Fade to Black. So we're gonna get an opportunity to see us all on the road and how we got down. And then literally, man, I mean, we got, you know, we filming currently about to film season 18 of Wildin' Out. Wow. And then from there, we're going to go, you know, by the end of the year, we'll be filming season 20. So season 20 has been 20.
Almost old enough to drink.
Yeah, facts. So, and then, you know, obviously Masked Singer #1 show out there right now. And then we just going to keep pushing in that sense.
Still got the podcast?
Of course, Cannon's Class. This all within... I gotta get now. I gotta get y'all. Y'all gotta come talk that financial literacy on Cannon's Class.
That's easy.
Too easy.
Yeah. So I mean that's kind of, to me, that goes within the Incredible brand. And even one of the things that I was talking about is like talk in a different forum, in a different way.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The legendary Nick Cannon, everybody.
Another incredible session.
Round of applause, please.
Appreciate.
That was dope.
Why you keep tying me to the chair?
Y'all appreciate you, man.